Hello, and welcome to our Tuesday, May 5th virtual studio visit with Krystle Brown. I'm Erin Becker, Director of the Cambridge Art Association, and we're so happy to be here with you today. I am going to pass this over to Krystle.
Hi, thanks for joining in. So this is my studio in my apartment that I share with a friend of mine and my roommate. We both went to Mass Art together. So it's a little clustery in here, but just gotta make do. So I started off, I went to Mass Art for undergrad, started off as a painter, and did painting and art history for my degree. And then in 2018, I graduated from Tufts, from the School of Museum of Fine Arts. And I got my Master's of Fine Arts there. And I did more video and installation while I was a student there. So now that I have limited space, I've been painting more again, which is really nice. And just trying to do video and installation when I go to residencies, like I did Vermont Studio Center last year, or if I'm get lucky and have the space to do it. But other than that, I've just been doing some painting, photography, anything that can either be on a computer or can take up limited space in my studio. So I've set up my phone camera, and this will be a little bit easier than using my laptop, but I can show you some of what I've been working on. Mostly this very large painting. It is 40 by 60 inches, and it's still very wet and angry. It's all oil paint. And then I've been working on this painting here. And oops, there we go. This is the painting that was in I think that little picture that we showed. So a little bit about my work, and obviously too at the end, I'd love to take questions the last like 10, 15 minutes of this. So I primarily look at the functions of class in American society. I grew up very much a blue-collar family. And so it's a lot of it is trying to digest the ways in which I grew up and how that represents what it means to be a person in the world, an artist, a woman, all those things. So I talk a lot about class division. I kind of go into some philosophical aspects too. I'm really interested in hauntology, which I feel like for myself, it's talking a lot about nostalgia for the past, but I often feel like we're living in past and future all at the same time. I feel that more now during the crisis. So, and beyond that, I just talk a lot about like family history and family trauma, and just weaving all of that together. I can show you, let me do the screen share now. Let's figure this out. Okay, I can show you my website, which will have some stuff. Oh, here's an email. There we go. Okay. Let's take me, yes, I have a million tabs on my computer, to which my partner goes completely crazy about. But this is how I somewhat organize my mental space. So I can start with what I did during my thesis year, just trying to bring all of these elements together about family history in class. A lot of my work that I did for my thesis was kind of like a reflection of something that I went through in 2017. I lost both my parents. So I had to kind of contend with what I was already thinking about with my artwork, and also this like major trauma. So it's linked to my Vimeo, and for some reason the text is like in the way. But I shot this video at a demolition site down the street from me in Jamaica Plain. So I'm really interested also in how like the ideas of class and family history kind of shows up in like issues around like gentrification, or just how we relate to a physical space, particularly within cities. So I'll just like click through it a little bit because I have a lot of other stuff to show. I'll turn down the audio. I don't even know if you guys can hear the audio in it, but that's like a pretty crucial point. So for this, it's called Gathering 112 Pounds. So I gathered roughly 112 pounds of bricks, which represented my father's final weight before he passed away from diabetes. So, of course, the internet doesn't want to play.
Looks like something froze.
Okay, so it seems like we have a little bit of a freeze, Krystle, and we can't hear your audio. But your second camera seems to be working without audio.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry about that. Yeah, my internet doesn't like to cooperate. It's either that or Zoom. So let me share the screen again with my desktop, and hopefully that won't mess things up.
Great. I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second. I'm going to ask everybody else, since I had to unmute everyone, if you can just mute yourself again, please.
Oh, yes, that would be. That way we don't hear like weird stuff in the background, like someone's dog. So with this installation, it was like made in 3 parts. I had a live video feed of a cake that I made, and it was so I'm a cake decorator by trade. So I made the cake in the likeness of my parents' home that I had to sell very quickly after they both passed. And I let it rot, and I cut it in half, and it was very stinky. And so I used the bricks from the construction site to prop up a like an upended coffee table. In the background behind the cake was a monitor of like a landscape going by. And that was all live streamed. Let me get back to the page. It was all live streamed on the opposite wall. And so you're seeing the cake and the house cake again. So again, going into like a hauntological perspective of like time, that feel suspended, I would say. So the future and the past and the present kind of all meshing in at the same time. So there was that, and then that video lived, I don't know why it's taking forever. That video that I just showed you lived on my father's chair that he would use to like smoke in his bedroom. So yeah, I projected that onto the chair. So you had like, you're witnessing all three things happening at the same time. So let me get back to my actual studio. I think I just need to new share. Let me see.
Yep, so you just want to stop the share.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure that out. Oh, stop share. Right there. And spotlight this video. So now that I don't really have a lot of space to work, which again, a lot of my work was about gentrification and like how we relate to space. So it's a little ironic. I mean, ironic, but also makes sense that I don't have the ability to afford a space. I've been using what I have to paint again. So I did that, the large painting that I showed a few moments ago in oil. And I can just use my phone again. Okay. Do you guys see it? Yeah. Okay. There we go. Little crooked. Let me get it. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the background here. And I can describe the shirt too in a moment. But I've been working on this painting. I haven't done collage in a really long time. But I've been thinking about our relationship to animals. Like I started this after the quarantine went into effect. So I've been thinking about our relationship to animals and nature and space, and how it's really fraught and tenuous. And so the imagery that I got from that book, or this book right here, is the Natural Sciences Illustrated from two of them. I don't know, I think I must have gotten at a thrift store, but they were made in the 50s, and they were, to my surprise, they were already talking about climate change. And they even had, let me see if I can find the cutout. They illustrated how Florida will be under a lot of water. I'm trying to find my little Florida cutout. I have all these cutouts that I've been using. Oh, there we go. There's Florida. So you could see that even in the 50s, they were talking about that, which I was really shocked about, because it just seems like it's a more like since the 70s kind of situation that they were talking about climate change being a serious issue. So yeah, that's just like one big thing I've been working on. Sorry for the glare, but this shirt was something that I made. I started at Vermont Studio Center. It was one of my father's work shirts. And I wrote a poem while I was in Vermont. And I embroidered the poem onto the shirt. And as I was doing that, because it was winter, my hands were really dry, I started bleeding. Did I cancel out again?
We can still see the second video, but no audio.
Okay. Can you?
Perfect.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that. So now that I've kind of shown you and we had some technical difficulties, I'd love to hear any questions that people might have. And yeah.
All right, while we're waiting for people to ask some
Oh,
questions, I'm wondering, how because you're working with a bunch of different materials. You're working in painting, you're working in installation. How do you make those decisions about, which medium you're going to use for which piece you're working on?
so Erin, I didn't hear the first part of your question.
I will repeat. So the first part was just talking about or asking about, you're using a lot of different sort of media. So you're working between, painting, sort of sculptural installation. You've done collage work. You're doing sort of embroidery. How do you decide, which media you're going to use to work on which project?
So I think about an idea that I have first. It kind of originates more in like an emotional recollection of like a memory, or it's something that I've noticed, like if I'm walking around, my neighborhood and I see something that I'm like, oh, this reminds me of this point in my life, or this reminds me of an article that I read. And then as I think about the idea and as it develops, I think about, well, how do I express this idea the best way possible? And so what ultimately happens is that the idea will come out in several different media types. So like that large painting I showed, I can see that also happening within a video. I've done video where I shot interior space of a vacant house. And so with the imagery in that painting shows, it's actually a barn, but a vacant house.
Cool.
So I go back and forth between the media or the medium.
I think we just lost you again. The audio does seem to be working on your phone, I think. So if we want to switch over to there, let's try.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay.
And
perfect. All right. We have a bunch of questions, so I'm just going to start at the top.
Okay.
I'm actually going to turn you off Spotlight. Amy Kaufman. Go ahead, Amy.
Oh, I keep looking at your painting behind you with the orange tape.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that a little bit and what's with the orange tape too?
So I started this painting actually my last semester of grad school. Hope you can see it pretty well. And it was a response to a train ride that I took between Hamburg and Berlin, Germany, where I saw a lot of those shipping containers. And it reminded me a lot of where I grew up, which was Chelmsford and Lowell, particularly near the train station. And I would see, like freight trains and shipping containers there as well. So that I started painting.
One of the contact tracing teams in Istanbul. We just met up with them. They are out there every single day.
What was that?
I don't know.
Oh, I was like, is someone asking me a question about contact tracing? Because
no, I don't know where that came from. That was really weird.
Wow. It's all screwed up. So what was I saying? Okay. So with I started painting the shipping crates or the containers. And then as the idea evolved, I incorporated other imagery that would then made me think about like, well, with shipping, was that like an economic, like consumerism standpoint? And then I was thinking about some of the houses I've been seeing in like Somerville and JP that are being either like refurbished or demolished. And it was always at this like weird interplay between the two states of being either demolished or refurbished. So I was combining the ideas of like a boom and bust economic standpoint that especially now we've been kind of thrust into. So I've been using ratchet straps, that's what these are specifically, because they're used in like shipping to, contain containers, or if you're having to move, often move very quickly, that you would put all your stuff, say, in the back of like a pickup truck and just kind of like lash it together. I will say that the ratchet straps are different. They're put on differently than how it was in the picture because they got loose and I had to retie them. So I'm gonna try to get them back to where they were in the picture. But I hope that answers the question well enough. But yeah, I'd love to hear any other questions.
Cool. Stephanie Todd Hunter has a question, so I'm going to unmute you, Stephanie. Go ahead.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Okay.
see you too.
Hi. So I was wondering, you used the word ontology several times when you were talking about how it relates to your artwork, and I've always found that word, like, I don't have a good idea of exactly what that means. Can you talk about what that word means for you in terms of your artwork?
Yeah, so for a long time, I've been trying to search for a term or a philosophical like idea of like why I'm attracted to all these seemingly disparate things, because in my mind, I'm like, they're not really that disparate. They seem like they're very connected. And I don't know if it's just me because in my mind they're connected, but to other people, I've seen people talking about similar ideas together. So in my research, I stumbled upon the idea of ontology, which is talking about, it's essentially this kind of attachment to nostalgia. So we see it a lot, like our most basic thing that we can point it to is on Instagram, you can put all these filters on your photos to make it look old because there's some appeal to it. So it's really like peeling back the layers of why there's all this appeal. And it's, it can be linked to like Marxism and talking about like how in, let's say, the 80s, there was more economic stability for most Americans. And I say that like very grain of salt. So it's looking back on those times when we believed there was more economic stability. So I think it's kind of like looking at the critical nature of our want for this type of nostalgia, particularly from 80s, 70s time frame, because we're not looking at like nostalgia from like the 1910s or like Victorian times. Of course, that's still there, but this is really talking about a very, kind of particular time period, and why like people like in my generation seem to have this kind of false nostalgia for it. And so in some other works of mine, I've used objects from my parents' house, objects that come from like the 80s and a more economically stable time. It's not evident in all the work here, but it is something that I think about when I'm making the work. And how it relates to me, I'm still kind of figuring that out. And as I learn more about it, I'm finding ways that I'm pushing back against it, but it's still something that's really central to like how I think and operate.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's hauntology, not ontology, but that's kind of the funny thing because in French, it's basically the same. So I think it was Mark Fisher, or Mark Fisher is one that popularized the term, but I also believe that Jacques Diderot also kind of like invented it. And I think it's because he used that because it sounded like a lot like ontology.
Okay. All right. I thought you were saying ontology, but now that you're saying
Ontology.
now I got
Yeah,
it. Okay.
it's a purposeful play on words.
Okay,
Sort
I
of
got it.
within French, but yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, we have a question from Judith. You are unmuted, Judith.
Unmute.
Mm.
Okay, my question was about that smaller painting and the images that you took from the book. You were showing us those images, the book from the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wondered how did you literally transfer them onto the painting?
Oh, so what is it showing? Okay. I just very carefully cut them out with an X-Acto knife from the book. And then I took some, I think it was just matte medium, like glue, and just applied really thin layers to attach it.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's too bad we can't see it. I can't see it right now, but anyway, makes total sense. And so then you were able to use it with oil paint, correct? Hello?
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 Did you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but we can't
Okay.
see if you
You
can.
can't hear me though, right?
I can hear you
Okay,
and Erin.
okay. So then you could paint with oils right on top, right around it, right?
Well, this painting is actually with acrylic.
Okay.
Yeah, you could use oils with it only if you really got like a lot of matte medium, because it'd be like a gesso.
Yeah,
I would just do it carefully if that was something that you would be interested in.
very cool. I love the way it looks. It's great.
Thank you. Yeah, it's still a work in progress. I'm trying to figure it out.
Okay, we have a question from Talia.
Hell yeah.
You are unmuted.
My question for you, as someone who really can relate to your comments about your space affecting what you make, is what would your dream studio environment be, or where has been your favorite place to make art?
Okay. Well, my favorite space to make art, I say, was probably at Vermont Studio Center, because I had a lot of space. I think that's really like all I truly need. And it's hard because I'm operating out of I'm operating out of like, I don't have exactly what I need, but I'm working with what I got. So it's hard for me to be really imaginative about like the ideal studio space. I think the last several years of like living in, I don't know, late capitalist society, Boston / America, has really like robbed me of a lot of like imagination for what could be better. I would say just like a warehouse-like space, or something bigger than, I could even probably like be happy in an 8x10 space. Just something that I can get the work in and out of easily and near civilization.
Yeah.
Pretty bare bones.
Not asking for a lot.
Yeah, no. But yeah, we've talked about that too. Just like not having a lot of space.
Well, may you have some space to daydream.
Thank you. I'll try.
Okay, do we have any other questions for Krystle? While you're thinking about that, I'm going to share my screen, and we can learn more about where we can see Krystle's work. Just bear with me for one moment here.
Yeah, sorry for all the technology troubles. I don't know if it's like my internet or Zoom being weird.
It's the new world that we're living in.
Yeah.
But so you can see more of Krystle's work online at krystlebrownart.com. I also encourage you to follow her on Instagram at krystlebrown_art. I know that there's been a lot of great things going on in the Insta world with artists getting creative in the time of COVID. And I'll also make a pitch because today is Giving Tuesday after all. And on Friday, we are celebrating CAA Day. That if you enjoyed this program and you're able to, consider making a donation to our annual fund. We've been closed now since March 13th and not sure yet when we're going to reopen. So every dollar helps to make sure that we can reopen at full steam, hopefully in June. But with that, I'm going to stop this share. And yeah, the only question, Krystle, is if you can just, I don't know if you can just pivot your computer screen around.
I just did that.
There we go.
Also, I can either email them if they feel comfortable with that, or they can email me and I can give them like a picture of that painting. I mean, it's still a work in progress, but just so they can see it a little bit better and it's not like my shaky hand showing the painting.
Cool.
But I hope I answered everyone's,
Is that one on your website yet or no, since it's still?
No, just because I think it could be on my Instagram, like at least in the beginning stages, but no, I only put finished stuff on my website.
Cool.
But I hope I answered everyone's questions to the best of my ability. I felt like I was very like spacey from being distracted by the technology not working. So if you have like other questions or you want me to clarify something, I'm more than happy to do that. And honestly, sometimes it's just me figuring out like how everything meshes together, which is like my biggest challenge of how to like explain it. But I feel like that's most artists anyway.
Fantastic.
So,
well, this was all recorded. So if anybody wants to relive it, it will be on YouTube whenever I can get it up there, usually within a week. And you can actually watch all of our previous virtual studio visits on our YouTube channel. And you can find that by visiting cambridgeart.org/virtual studio visits. We will be back here on Thursday, May 7th, same time, 12:30, with France Lexi, who is a painter. And I think his studio is in his home as well. So we'll be checking out his paintings. And until then, I'm going to unmute everybody. I'm going to cancel my spotlight, unmute everyone. And you can all say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Erin, thank you for planning all these too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy the beautiful weather today, everybody. And thank you, Krystle, for giving us a look inside your studio.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you
We
so
enjoyed
much.
it. Thank you.
Your painting is on
Thank you, Erin and
Instagram.
Krystle.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah, here it is. It's right here.
I don't remember what I put on there
Yeah,
sometimes.
it's like the second thing, or it's right up there.
Okay. Yeah, that was
Thank you so
it.
much. That was really great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, really interesting. It's really
Yes, thank you.
Cool.
All right. Well, I hope I see everybody on Thursday.